Hello, my name is Joshua. I am a Revit API developer from Christchurch, New Zealand. My last built submission video was called 5 Secrets of Revit API Coding. That was successful, so this one is video number 2 in the series, and this one is called 5 Blunders of Revit API. This is macro to MSI installer. What is the MSI installer? That is this file here. We're going to create a macro here in Revit and turn it into one of these. We're going to do it through Visual Studio. I have not made any assumptions starting this lab except for that you have a installation of Revit installed, which can be Revit 17, 18, 19 or 20, 2020, and you have this directory of code snippets in front of you. I haven't even made the assumption you have Visual Studio installed, so I'm going to take you through the installation process of Visual Studio with screenshots that I've made earlier and show you what extension you also need to add to Visual Studio in order to create one of these. So let's begin. But before we get into the techniques of the lab, I need to show you a plugin because we actually have to have a plugin to demonstrate it with. So here's the plugin. The link down below is a zip file, and that'll give you the binaries, the design files, most importantly is this directory of code snippets. If we install this binary now, I want to demonstrate to you this plugin and the feature of the plugin. So I've installed it. It's a very simple thing. We're going to create a new project based on the construction template. There's the tab, it's called JL Secrets. Here we're going to create walls, exterior walls, then change the type to interior and create a wall straight down the middle. There, that is all the modeling we're going to do in this lab. Let's see the plugin working. So there it is. It's a modeless, a constant state modeless properties grid. It's used for changing the type parameters of this wall or any any Revit entity, because the most common type parameters of a Revit entity is description, manufacturer, model, and type comment. Let's make a change to this now. So I've selected an exterior wall, and I'm going to type in, just throw in some text. Hello, world, Roger. Click Update to. And here you'll see under Type Properties, it's made the change. You notice the big difference between using that and using this? This accepts carriage returns. This Properties Grid Windows control is a Nuget package, and I'm going to show you how to use Nuget packages. It's not as simple as it is if you're building a standalone Windows application. It's more difficult with plugins, but it's very possible. I'm going to show you how to use Nuget packages. If we now select an interior wall, Properties Grid, make a similar change. Now notice how these are modeless forms. You can pan and zoom while them still open. You can have as many open as you want, and unlike using this properties grid, it will not, on the selection of another entity, it will not go and change it. It is a constant state properties grid. Well, let's, under manufacturer for the interior wall, we'll type in, I am an interior wall. Update. Now let's see these type properties in schedule so we can see them properly. So if we create a schedule, come down to wall, add fields for type and manufacturer, come into sorting grouping, sort by type. We don't want it to itemize every instance. Click OK. We'll need to make ourselves a sheet in order to throw the schedule into. So here's the floor plan now, and we'll add the schedule. There it is. You'll notice that the text in this schedule matches up to the text here. The text here matches up to the text here. Let's make a change and we'll see it happening on the fly. So under interior wall, we'll type in Acme interior wall manufacturer limited. Click update. There it is, it changes. Does it happen on this other one? Hello, goodbye, update. Yes, it does. That's the plugin. There's one more feature of this plugin that I'm going to show you before I uninstall it, and then we're going to create it all from scratch. The other feature of the plugin is the ability to switch between here release mode and development mode. The purpose of the plugin is for the purpose of this MSI is for dissemination, but we'll need to develop it in between releases. So this release is intended for viewing by your audience, but this developer mode is intended for viewing by us, the developers. So we'll switch to developer mode, and we'll make a little change to bring over our Visual Studio window, make a weird change, and build that change and see what happens. There's a change. Build the change. It should finish building here. Come back into here, select our wall, and there it is. It looks very funny now because we've just made a development change. But if we go back to release mode, it goes back to the normal one. So in development mode and release mode gives you the version you want to look at in between releases and the version your audience is intended to see. So we want to, so that's it. We're going to put this back to where it was because I don't not want it looking like that. Build that again. We're going to shut down Revit now and uninstall this plugin so we can build it again from scratch. Uninstall. This is the uninstall from control panel. It's waiting for the Revit process to finish shutting down. There it is. It has finished. So we'll shut down also a Visual Studio here. Okay. Now, let's get cracking and let's show you how to install Visual Studio. I did this the other day, made screenshots during the installation. Go to Google, search for Visual Studio, and then you want to install Community 2019. Then you want to install the pre-installer, which will activate the full installer. On this screen you want to make sure that .NET Desktop Development is ticked and Universal Windows Platform Development is ticked. Then it goes through and installs. That could take up to 20 minutes depending on your bandwidth and how fast your computer is. After that's finished installing, it'll probably ask you to reboot, but here's an important part. You have to install an extension that allows you to make the MSI file. The extension is called Microsoft Visual Studio Projects. Search for that, Microsoft Visual Studio Installer Projects. Here's the page it takes you to with the open box icon. Download it. Install that. On this screen, make sure Visual Studio Community 2019 is installed. And that's it. We're done. And we're ready. We've got our we've got our Visual Studio and our extension. We're not going to use Visual Studio to activate our project. So here it is, but we're not going to click on create a new project. We're going to click on continue without code because we're going to create our project from Revit. The one thing that Sharp Developer is good for is creating new projects. So under Tools, under Manage, then Macro Manager, go create module, type in my parent. Now it's important that's spelt correctly. My parent, no spaces, with a capital P. That'll go ahead and build a whole bunch of directories and design files in the background. Most importantly, it'll also include directives and references and attributes to the add-in ID and the transaction mode. We're going to create another module. This one is going to be called My Child 1. My Child 1. That's important that that is spelt correctly. That will also open up another Sharp Develop window. We're not going to do anything with my parent except here we're going to do a right mouse click and open folder in Explorer. There it is. Now we can close this Sharp Develop window. On this Sharp Develop window, My Child 1, we're going to go a right mouse click on My Child, and then go Add, New Item, C# WPF Windows Control, and Create. That'll create us a window, and we're done. We can close that one. We can close the Macro Manager dialog. We do not need Revit for a while. Come back to here, My Parent. If we go one level up on My Parent to the source, there's the solution file. Here's here's Visual Studio. Grab the solution file, drag it onto Visual Studio, and now it will ask you whether you about this. Just click OK because we're changing the framework anyway. So just click OK on that prompt. You don't need that anymore. Here it is. Solution with one project loaded. My Parent. We need 3 additional projects loaded. Of course, the one that we made was My Child. We will go on Solution, right mouse click, Add, Existing Project. And we're going to navigate to My Child. So we're in My Parent directory here. If we go into App Hookup, then drill down onto My Child 1, Source, My Child 1 again, there's the My Child 1 project. And that will now add itself to the solution. We need 2 more projects. These are going to be new projects. One is going to be called a class library. Blunder number 1 is when developing these plugins. I keep wanting to add just normal old class libraries, and every time I did, I selected the wrong one. I thought I needed a standard class library, and so I clicked on .NET Standard. That's not the correct one. The correct class library is 2 down, .NET Framework. So how many times I've gone and clicked .NET Standard when I should have clicked .NET Framework. .NET Framework is a project for creating C# class libraries, and that is blunder number 1. Okay, so the default name for that class library project name is fine, so we'll just create that. And we need one more project. So we've got 3 there now. In our solution we need one more, and that's the one that the extension was installed for. So we go Add, New Project, and this one we're going to type in a search term Setup. There it is, Setup Project. Create a Windows installer project to which files can be added. But we can't use the default project name. We need to use a special name because this is referenced in code. The code is, the name is Revit API Nuget Example 2019. That's our project name. Create on that one. There we have it. We don't need any tabs open at this point, so we can close all these tabs. Okay. With Revit Nuget example selected, we're going to change some of these properties in here. We want it to install on all users, so change that from true to false to true. We want it to uninstall remove previous versions, so change that to from false to true. And we want to change the target platform from x86 to x64. One more tweak. Do a right mouse click there, properties, and under prerequisites we want to include Microsoft.NET Framework 4.7.2 and have that one selected. And I think we're done. I don't think we need to have that one selected. Now, my parent has properties. Let's check out the properties here. So if we do a right mouse click on my parent, here it is. On this first application, we want to up the target framework from 4.6.1 to 4.7.2. That's maxed it out. So at the time of this video, that was the highest framework. Come down to settings. This project does not contain a settings file. Click here to create one. So we'll click there to create one. And we're going to include, give a bull setting for assembly needs loading. Bull setting. Here it is. Change type to bull. Deployment path route. We're going to make that keep that as the default string. So that's assembly needs loading, bull, false, and development path route, string. And there are our settings for my parent. Now we're going to change the settings for my child. I better explain what these things are. My parent contains the interface classes that Revit uses to load the ribbon and load the commands. The commands then invoke methods from my child, and the my child includes the window. Under my child properties, we're going to up the framework like we did with my parent to 4.7.2, and in this case we're going to do something different under build. We have to change the target platform for build from x64 to x86. Now that's a little counterintuitive. The reason is because we're using Nuget packages, and those Nuget packages will not render correctly on x86. It doesn't matter. It's only the parent has to match the platform target as Revit. So Revit's 64-bit. The parent is 64-bit, but because child is invoked from parent, it doesn't matter. That can be x86, and I don't believe there's a performance hit for using a lower spec platform. So under settings, and we create a settings file for my child. My child contains a window, and that window needs to have a position and dimensions. So the position is determined by top and left, and the dimensions is determined by width and height. Now these are all bool parameters. These are all double parameters. Types, not parameters. Double, 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 and double. The default values will be 300 for top, 300 for left, 500 for width, 700 for height. When the user changes the position of the window and resizes it and then closes the window, the next time the user opens it up, it will be in the exact position they left it last time. So those are our settings for my child. Right, now what I want to do now is get cracking into a bit of form design here, but we're not going to do that yet. We need a couple more things, and those are Nuget packages. So under Tools, Nuget Package Manager, Manage Nuget Packages for Solution, we're going to browse and go out over the internet for extended WPF Toolkit. This is probably the most widely used Nuget package. It has 2 million downloads right there. We want to install it for all three of our projects. There's one more Nuget package that we need to install. You can see all the references populating the projects here. There's one more that we need. It's called Ookii dialog boxes. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. This Ookii dialog boxes allows us to emulate the Windows 7 style task dialogues that Revit likes to use, and so it does a pretty good job of emulating the exact same style. Okay, so we're finished. Let's get into our form design now. my window. This was initiated from Sharp Develop. First, we're going to drag on a button. That's from Toolbox, drag on a button. This button is going to be the update button. We're going to release the top lock so that it automatically locks to the bottom. Name the button update. And the text in the button is going to be the same, update. Let's create another button. This one is going to be called update and close. And the text in the button is going to be the same, update and close. It has to lock to the bottom, release the lock from the top. Drag in our properties grid. First we better generate the event methods. Double click on them to generate the event methods. There they are. Now let's get our properties grid, drag it on. There it is. We're going to lock these, use double locks for the right side and for the bottom. That's a double lock, and the purpose of that is so the form stretches when the user resizes the window. So the control stretches so the window resizes. See the control stretching? Now, blunder number 2 is the what I've always forgotten to do with modeless forms is that they always have to be set to topmost. So under window, if you have to have topmost selected there under window, the reason is because here in Revit, if you have the modeless form open, the main window will go in front of the modeless form. I've had situations where I've been debugging and I've had about 20 of these windows that I wasn't aware of being blocked by the main Windows application, the Revit application, and I never realized it was because I did not set this property here to topmost, and that is blunder number 2. Okay, now I'm going to tell you that these controls, these Windows controls here in Toolbox don't automatically appear, I don't think. In order to include them from the Nuget package, you have to do a right mouse click there and go choose items. I can't demonstrate that for you because it takes too long. This is a continuous take video and it goes through a loading screen that takes 3 minutes. I've provided a cheat, however, is that properties grid, 005 properties grid, we can just simply replace all that XAML code there just by copying and pasting, and that's the way around it. Right, blunder number 3 is these references here. I used to think that the Sharp Develop was really clever putting in these relative path references, but the reason they don't work, as I have come to realize, is because when you want to move your design files from one location to the other, these relative path references become completely useless. So we've got to now remove them and replace them with the correct path references using absolute paths and not relative paths. So because I'm using Revit 2019, in this case for me it will be in Program Data Autodesk Revit Macros 2019. Those are the two there. And now we've got them loaded with absolute paths. Did that load up? There it is there. And here under my parent we do the same. References, we take out those two relative paths. The good news is we do not have to use the file path to find them again because it has them stored in recents. And that one. And we're done. Alright. So back here on my child we're going to do a test build. And it should work. No, it doesn't. I think we're missing one thing. When we initiated this window form, we had to have a reference to XAML. Sharp Develop is not smart enough to automatically include the reference to Windows XAML, so that has to be manually included. And now we'll do a test build right now, and it should build. There it is. That is a successful test build. Let's get into some coding behind the window. Expand there, and let's get into the coding part. Here we are. at the top we're going to add some directives to the Revit API. Then we're going to add some fields for the API docs. Now the API UI doc comes in via the method signature here for the constructor. So this is the class, that's the class constructor, this is the method signature, and the method signature needs to have a parameter to the Revit document. Now a parameter for in methods is not the same as a Revit parameter, they're two different things, but they're both called parameters, so that is a parameter. We've got red lines here for a couple of support classes. On my child we're going to drag in this file here, so that is called 007, drag on class 1, drag that onto my child, and those red lines should disappear. They do. We have now initializers that happen after the initialized component. So when the window gets made, here is the here's where it gets the position and dimensions of the window. Here is how the UI doc gets initialized. This is where the properties grid grabs the information from the entity that you have selected on screen. We also need to send the information back to the entity, and to do that we need to use a update method right here, and this update method raises an external event to send the information back to the entity after the user clicks update. The update Revit is a method that's called by these click buttons here, there, and there. But the only difference between those two is that update and close will also need to call the close event there. Okay, we're almost done with my child 1 project, but there's one more thing, is that the whole window has to be opened. So that is done via a method here in this application. I've missed a part. The part I missed is the closing event. Under Windows here, we come into events, we have to include closing. This is where the position and dimensions of the window get saved back. There we go. Now, back in this application, we need to have the calling method. So my parent calls this method. This is the one that's invoked from my parent. They're right there, and I think we're done. Let's build this project now, and we're done. That's ready. We're going to move on to my parent now. Now, my parent's the one that sets up the ribbon and the commands and the panels and the buttons. So under this application for my parent, we're going to first we're just going to drag on a few buttons. So those are the images for the buttons. If we just drag them onto there, these images here, and if we make sure that these images, under the properties for these images, copy to build output directory is set to copy if newer. It has to be set to copy if newer. We're also going to drag on a class and another CS file. So we're now equipped with the ones that invoke the my child, and a few supporting methods in this one here. Under this application, we're going to add in directives to the top. In order for Revit to recognize it as a plugin, we have to give it a interface, which is the iExternal application, and that's how Revit recognizes it as a plugin. But we also have auto-implementing fields here, auto-implementing properties actually. These are auto-implementing properties that go in there, and because iApplication external application has that red line. That means it's asking for startup and shutdown events. So we've got to include those in here as well. Startup and shutdown events. The startup events. This is where the ribbon gets made and the panel gets made. The buttons go onto the panel and the little combo box also goes onto the panel. The combo box has a change event which is allows it to switch between developer and release. So this is this event here. We're just going to throw that one in. We're also missing, because we want one of the buttons to appear on the modify panel, we have to include a direct reference to one of the DLL files in the Revit install in the Revit from the Revit program files. I'm going to show you that now. I've got Revit 2019. It'll be different if you're using a different version. And references here, we're going to add one. Browse. Okay, so program files Autodesk Revit 2019. There's a reference, direct reference here to add windows, and that allows us to stick one of the buttons onto the modify panel. Okay, I think we're getting pretty damn close to building this. I think we are, in fact. So let's build this now. My parent. Did not build. We're missing one more reference. That is to presentation core. Windows presentation core. That one there. Let's build it again. There it is. I think that's a successful build. So we have now completed our projects for my child. We've completed our projects for my parent. We now have this one to do. Revit API Nuget example. Now this is how the this is the setup project, and when you click on that, it has all these additional buttons coming up there, and there. If you go on to the first one, then drill down into applications folder. You want to add the project output for class library. Cool. You want to add the project output for my child. Cool. We also want to add the project output for my parent. Here we go. For my parent, but it's not just the project output, it is also the content files for my parent. We're going to get, that's excellent. We're going to get rid of that. Right, on the second button. On the second button, so that's file system editor. On the second one we have a registry editor. Let's add in under HKey local machine, software, manufacturer, we're going to add in a new registry key, and this is going to be called product name. New key product name. Done. That's in square brackets. We're going to add some value strings now. One value string is going to be called product version. The actual value of the value string is the same text, except it has brackets around it. Product version. Add in a second value string here. This is going to be target directory. We're going to new target directory, and that likewise has the actual value of the same with the same text, except it has square brackets around it. Done. Alright, now we've got so we've done file system editor, we've done registry editor. We're going to skip those two, but we are going to do custom actions editor. Custom actions editor. This one has install and uninstall custom actions that need to be added, and if you're wondering, that was the whole point of this class library here. Class library 1. That has to be added for install, and also has to be added for uninstall. Class library 1. There's one thing, we're coming up to blunder number 4. Blunder number 4 is that information has to be sent to class library 4, and in order to do that we add it to this property here, custom actions data. So the point of the custom actions is so that it generates the add-in file based on what the user selects at installation. In order to for Revit to know that there's a plugin there, add-in file has to be there. the additive file needs an absolute path to wherever the user has installed the plugin binaries. In order to get that information into the custom action, it comes through here and through here. The blunder was that I was probably spent up until about 4 AM in the morning trying to figure out why it didn't work, because I didn't know that there needed to be a space between the closing bracket and the speech mark. That's there. The closing bracket and the speech mark, that has to be there. That is not a bug, by the way, of this software. Whoever designed it intended for you to know that. We're supposed to know that that space is there. And that needs to go into the same thing for uninstall as well. Custom action data. Okay, we're almost done. Now, under class library, we have to, we've finished that one. So we've finished that project, we've finished that project, we've finished that project, but we haven't finished the class library project. So we do a right mouse click on there, add, new item. This time we're going to search for something called installer. Installer. That should be there. We missed the S. There it is. Installer. Installer class. That will go in. Switch to code view. We're going to add some directives to the top of that. Directives to the top. Right here. Now we need install and uninstall events. Those go in there. We will need an additional reference to Windows Form. It's that one there. System Windows Forms. And I think we're about done. What are we missing? I think that we stuck in our that is a red line there. It cannot contain directive methods. I think I pasted that uninstall and install into the wrong place, so we need to shift one of these brackets over the other side, and that's fixed it. Excellent. That could have been blunder number 6. Right, let's see if that builds, and it does. So we've finished it. We've finished all 4 of our projects. We're going to do the big install now, see if that works. We'll open up the open folder in source, drill down to debug. Let's build it now and see what happens. So on build, it should generate the the files here. These are the binary files, MSI files it generates. And it has worked. So let's test it, eh? Might as well test it right here and now. Double click. Next, next, next. We're finished. Back in here, here it is. Let's do a test. Oh man, I'm hella nervous right now. This is take 10 of this. It's taken me that long to get a take where I haven't screwed up massively. So I'm very nervous. Here we go. Select a wall, properties grid. Did it work? Thank God it worked. Is Roger still alive? Roger is still alive. Click update, and that should have updated over here in the schedule. There it is. Roger is still alive. It worked. So that's functional test number 1. We've got another 2 more functional tests. One is that we have to make sure that it works with it has to work in developer mode. So we're going to close this window here and going to transfer our design files from the app hookup into a more appropriate directory on Dropbox. So here are our design files under app hookup. We go to Dropbox here and create ourselves a more appropriate directory. And here, going to name this one Take 9. Here we go, design files, drag them all in. Done. I'm going to open it up again from this location. And here we're going to set our development path route to where we've placed those design files, which will be in under Take 9 directory. Design files, we're there, select folder. That has done that. Over here, we'll let that finish loading. With the combo box, switch it to C# developer mode, and we're gonna, as soon as this is finished loading, we're going to test it. This is the first time. This is why it's taking so long in the new location. Here we are. Right, my child, expand it. There's the form. We're going to make a little tweak to the form. It takes a while to finish updating that first time. The button, we'll give it put some text on the button. Update the content to update to. And as soon as that's finished, we'll build it. There it is. So that says update to. We'll build it now. Wait for it to finish building, and there it is, one successful build. Come over here, there, JL secrets, and it says update to. So that is a successful functional test number 2. The last functional test in blunder number 5 is that it has to uninstall cleanly. So if we shut down our Revit here, goodbye, and we'll shut down our Sharp Develop window here. Sorry, not our Sharp Develop, our Visual Studio window here. Goodbye. The add-in directory is the one we want to pay attention to during the when it uninstalls. So here's the add-in directory. There's the add-in, my parent, and when we uninstall, this has to disappear. Uninstall, and that is the correct functional test number 3. Right, so that is blunder number 5 is that no plugin is complete unless it cleanly uninstalls. It is not a complete application until the very end. Okay, and that's it. I've now taught you how to make an MSI installer. If you've followed me so far, that is a remarkable achievement. The best thing you can do for me is to leave me a comment or give me a subscribe or like. Your feedback is what makes me a better coder, and if I don't know where I've gone wrong, if I don't get criticism, then I'm not improving. So thank you for your time, and I hope I get to make more of these videos in the future.